So for me personally, it was never something that I had set out to do. I had honestly had been ashamed of being plant-based. So I was, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, I was raised vegetarian by virtue of my parents' spiritual beliefs, of which I was raised with as well. And one of those beliefs is ahimsa, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, which is just trying to live a life and not contribute to any unnecessary harm or suffering and try to lead with compassion. So, by virtue of trying to follow that, it leads me to make the choice to not consume animal products. And when I was raised vegetarian, I grew up in Mississippi. And there weren't too many vegetarians in Mississippi. And I would constantly get questioned and asked about my spiritual beliefs whenever I was younger. And I didn't have the vernacular or the language to really explain myself. So I tended to become more withdrawn or just a little bit more avoidant whenever people would ask me that question. And it really wasn't until my later years when I was mid 20s when I leaned into that part of myself and started to really embrace and own my belief and being proud of that belief. And that's what ultimately led me to finding my purpose, because people started to ask me once I started winning bodybuilding competitions. They started to ask me, how are you doing this? And the question that I once avoided so much about why I was vegetarian now became this really interesting topic for people that wanted to learn more from it. So I started sharing more online and then just naturally fell into this place where I was teaching people, which was really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think so many of us as kids have beliefs or values that we follow because of our parents. And then we feel embarrassed about them when we're questioned because they're not our beliefs and values at the time. Like you said, we don't know how to explain why we do this or why we don't do this. Often on those occasions, sometimes as we grow older, we leave those values.